Genomics is, I think, is the basis of life. It's so complex and so still quite unknown to us, but we are fascinated by all the developments, the scientific breakthroughs on how much information actually exists in one person's genome.
We can edit them, we can look at them, we can diagnose diseases based on them, and there are so many things we need to talk about when it comes to these things, and we don't really do it.
On the flip side, if you have that information and you can predict whether or not somebody is getting ill or somebody is prone to have schizophrenia or a really bad disease, what can other people do with that information? Is it keeping you from having a job, from having an insurance, from buying a house, from driving a car? How small is your world going to get based on the information that people have about you?
A few years ago in America, a court ruled that these data could be used to identify a serial killer. So then all of a sudden your data are being used for crime solving. And these data can also be coupled to face identification using AI.
Should we be allowed to do this? And how do we make sure that the people that are involved feel that their privacy is not being abused?
Genomics is both about that life on the molecular level, but also about life on that moral, ethical level. So how can we actually make sense in a moral way about what it is that we're doing with all of these technologies?
Are we going to change the DNA of future generations? I mean, that's a huge question.
This is why it's so important for ethicists and other stakeholders from society to be involved, to sort of have a check on people, biologists like myself, that we maybe can do and manipulate all kinds of stuff, but maybe do not have this full view of what the implications may be and what the boundaries are.
So there is clearly this gap where you need this bridge between the sciences and society, and that is a gap and a spot that I would very much like to fill.
Whenever we are studying something, we are thinking about implementation. Kind of like, okay, what is there something we can do for the rest of the population to actually make it better?
And that also requires new skills that you don't find necessarily when you're doing traditional research. So it's not like I'm doing my research, these are the results, I'll write a publication and then the impact will follow automatically. That's not the case. It actually requires hard work. And it means that you need to involve different stakeholders from the beginning of your research. So you need to talk to the people who are actually affected by the topic of your research and to find out what their needs and values are.
We need to walk the walk, and so that's what we're trying to do, is actually just instill the need, really the need for this co-creation, for this communication.
So in that way, we're trying to create a common language that we can actually use throughout the rest of the masters and beyond, so that you can actually talk about these pretty complex topics in ways that are understandable for your peers who might not be on the same page as you are.
So we're actually teaching our students to become T-shaped specialists. So they have in-depth knowledge of genomics and broad knowledge of society, so in order to be able to navigate all these domains that are involved in genomics and society.
So for example, we want them to know the psychology that's involved. We want them to know the more clinical genetics part, the governance, the forensic part, all these different kind of aspects. We want to learn that to the students, but we also want them to have a deep knowledge of genetics, because they need both of those aspects to combine their knowledge and to be the bridge builders we want them to be.
You have to learn how to listen to your own intuition, to value your own input, and to also listen and value the input of others around you, and how do you create and synthesize that information together to create something new together.
I would say that I've become more appreciative of these other perspectives, because I've always thought about, okay, I'm a med student, I'm supposed to look at the medical side of things. Okay, maybe a bit of ethics in there, because you also have something called medical ethics, but that's it, that's enough, that's sufficient. And now I'm like, no, that's not sufficient.
That realization, once students have that, that's once they really get going. When they really realize, I don't have to think about this in the category of psychology, but I can also consult my own lived experience, my own curiosity, and that might lead me to another field, and that's okay. I don't have to knock on the door, hey, can I come in? No, sure, kick the door and ask a question about ethics, do it. That's where the fun starts. That's where the real development starts.
And then, you know, when you want to teach students about how to develop interdisciplinary skills, you have to teach people by doing, because they cannot just absorb knowledge and then, you know, write it out in a written exam and then you know that they have a skill. That's something that they have to practice. That's something they have to, you know, be confronted with the things that don't work to understand why you should do things differently.
And we're like, stop trying to succeed. Really, we want you to try to fail, like, because it's through your failure, it's through these complications where we learn the most.
And that's something I definitely still need to get used to, because handling something where you're not sure if it's actually good and asking feedback on it is a weird experience to me.
It's a different, like, motivation, I would say. So, you know, you're thinking a bigger picture, and it's just not, you know, I would say before in studies was all about which grade you will get, which GPA will be, and which master. Now is more like, how can I actually do something, learn something to actually help.
We see each course as a journey. We travel together with the students from our own starting point, and we develop together towards some goals.
So rather than assessing a few moments, say like a very high stakes assessment moment like an exam, we just have several lower stakes moments where it's not so much the grade that you get that is important, but what matters is the feedback that you get and how you use that to actually grow as a student.
You have a data point, and a data point is basically every end product students create. So it can be an essay, an oral presentation, or a vlog. It can be everything. They want to look at the student from a more holistic view. So that's why they want to collect all these data points and all these end products and create like a more complete image of the student.
So maybe one of the students is really good at scientific writing, but needs to work on, you know, interacting with societal stakeholders. So that's how students get agency, and also they get a personal learning curve.
You have a lot more freedom as a student to really look to things that you want to learn, you want to know more about, and the things that you really want to go for.
It is different, and that also brings a lot of confusion and uncertainty, and students are sometimes feeling a bit insecure the first few weeks, and we just have to be there and as cheerleaders to make sure that they are still involved and still excited.
Because we want to believe in our students, we have high expectations and we encourage you, and you know, education is fun. We're here because we love it.
If we are not cheerleading them, they will not go into those directions. They will stay with where they're comfortable with because they're afraid to fail. And we try to cheerlead them in a way that they are not that afraid to fail anymore. And I actually see it happening, so I'm pretty proud of the students about that.
Anytime there's a sign that someone is, you know, struggling with something, or, you know, just wants to have a one-on-one, I have coffee with them. So we sit here in the nice Chesterfield chairs, we have free coffee and spill it out.
I mean, Erasmus MC may be big, but at the same time it's like a small village with a village square where you run into people, and I will not miss those opportunities to briefly chat with them and hear how things are going. So I'm part of the furniture for the students.
I have to give credit to the core teachers, because the enthusiasm that they have for this program and for this idea is incredible, and that's definitely infectious towards the students as well.
No one has the contact we have with our professors. I think that that's the most crucial about this master, is that we are all like family.
And I think that is very valuable for the students, but also for the teachers. Because you get so much energy just from that feeling of we're doing this together and we're not leaving anyone behind.
It's really about that, indeed, sort of the cultivation of your students and getting to know them over time, developing a relationship, and then in that relationship, teaching them not only about science or about ethics or about genomics in society, but also how should you navigate that as a person? How should you navigate that as an academic?
It's preparing you for life, kind of like how to engage with stakeholders, how to say no, how to say yeah, how to implement your idea.
So you can apply the skills in different settings, whether you choose to do research or you choose to do teaching or work in a governmental organization or becoming a scientific journalist. I mean, it is the skills, I think, that you learn together with a very deep genomics knowledge that make this master very unique.
So when you consider rolling into genomics in society, we don't want your CV. We don't even ask for your motivation letter, but we want your narrative CV. And your narrative CV is actually, we ask you like, so what have you learned in your life that has put you on the path of genomics in society. And then we check whether how you came to our path and you know, your expectations there, is that actually a match with what we think we can offer?
Most of the students have done something societal, and then they did something biomedical, and then they went back to something societal. And it's really nice to see that when they became interested in genetics, they were like, oh, I can combine those aspects. And most of the students are looking for something like that.
So we want them to be curious and to say, I think this is really interesting and I want to figure this out. And even though I'm a psychology student who doesn't have a lot of experience with molecular biology, I'm willing to figure that molecular biology part out, to follow that curiosity. But also a particular level of self-reflection, knowing that I'm about to enter a field which is new and fresh and exciting, but also uncertain, insecure, and I might not be able to anticipate what is expected of me. Being able to navigate that space and willing to build that confidence of, you know, I'm not sure yet what I'm going to contribute, but I'm sure I will contribute something.
And I think every time you follow your passion and your excitement, I think it's the right choice for your career, because you do this job for, you know, many decades in your life, and you want to wake up and be happy. So
Yeah, come apply, yeah.